One Night at the Opera. Chapter 2. So majestic that it was rightfully considered the main building of the city. The ancient architect put all his genius, all his soul into this architectural masterpiece. It all started at another round fountain in the middle of the square, and then a staircase with many steps rose up. Framed by lanterns, it led to a grand portal, an entrance arch, and grandiose golden doors. Incredible stucco, figured pediments and parapets with statues. And all this at a magnificent height, with domes nesting in clusters, and several turrets. Not a theatre, but a palace illuminated by a golden glow, the architecture of which is worthy of 100 kings at once. I got out of the carriage, as usual, sighing with admiration. I will never cease to be amazed by this facade, no matter how long I see it. It is worth standing for a little while, just lingering, admiring, and only then going inside. But here I am, going inside. Now, let's take a look at the interior decoration, which is also impressive. There are golden lamps hung everywhere. Candelabra lamps, candlesticks of all kinds. This is the main form for wall lamps. Small chandeliers overhead in the corridors, there are never enough of them. The marble floors of the snow-white vestibule are in natural stone veins, and the wood of the cloakroom is exclusively red, as is the wood of the box office. Although both are now closed, no one accepts outerwear, no one sells tickets. Well, good, I'm only wearing a jacket, the weather allows. I look around and am amazed at how empty the vestibule is. No one is walking on the green and purple carpets now, also edged with gold. The gold border follows you everywhere, wherever your gaze leads. Gold is one of the main decorative colors of the opera. Her other signature color only shows up in the main hall, but you still have to get there. The theater is empty for now. Or is this some kind of magical effect? It is known for certain that the theater is enchanted. But now I could see with my own eyes exactly how. The master of ceremonies comes down the stairs to meet me. He claps his hands animatedly and declares that they have been waiting for me here for a long time, and are very happy to finally see me. So that's how it is. This is part of the ceremony for everyone who signed the magical contract. I suppose so. And now, after the handshake, it was as if a draft blew from all sides, and I begin to watch as the rest of the guests appear. An invasion of ghosts. First, voices appeared. A barely audible hubbub began to be heard from all sides. Then I saw the faint flickering outlines of the first figure, and then the second and third. Other guests, like ghosts, appeared around me in a few seconds, and instead of loneliness I was already in a crowd that was talking animatedly and scurrying back and forth. Some were laughing, some were whispering, some were talking at the top of their voices, discussing the upcoming performance. The hallways of the lobby became crowded, and on the carpeted paths above there were even crowds. I began to climb the very central staircase, and at first the master of ceremonies led me like a guide. We overcame more than one flight of stairs, and turned along the corridors more than a dozen times. The waiting rooms were overflowing with visitors dressed in solemn and ceremonial attire. Many had a frankly magical appearance, and some, it should certainly be noted, were not human at all. I noticed elves, and a group of vampires. Lightly equipped knights, who all turned out to be girls, lifting their visors. I noticed people with cat heads, and with jackal heads, like in ancient Egypt. And there were plenty of ghostly people here. Spirits hovered above the floors, sometimes rising higher, reaching up to the ceiling, and sometimes sinking waist deep into the carpet, and even disappearing into the walls. In short, there were plenty of magical varieties everywhere. I went to the window, which was curtained with blue curtains, so you couldn't look out, and listened. It seemed to have started raining outside. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. That's good. I love showers and thunderstorms, when you're already inside. There's something especially magical about rain, it always brings with it a lot of energy for all kinds of witchcraft. And it's wonderful that today's performance brought with it a real storm. The storm outside was supported by a storm of excitement inside. Some of the smaller ones, like rabbits with watches dressed in vests, even tried to run along the corridors, muttering something under their breath. They maneuvered with difficulty between the legs, but did not cause anyone any concern. And along with them, some cooks, service personnel, and artists who had not yet managed to make all the last preparations maneuvered among the people. Musicians and pale conductors, singers and simple costume designers, few just stood still, waiting. There were countless carpets. Many had turned crimson, and various paintings hung on the walls everywhere. This theater was also an art gallery. Here I noticed a fat man who had a clock face instead of a face. And its hands showed incorrectly, since they reflected his facial expressions and emotions, not matching the real time at all. And then a group of tall women in dark dresses with hoods. Each had a mysterious, barely noticeable smile on her face, and on her side, on her hip, hung a heavy magic book, fastened with a beautiful belt. One of the sorceresses turned and smiled at me, this time more widely. The procession through the labyrinth of passages continued. I would have gotten lost long ago, because the master of ceremonies had long since disappeared and left me in this crush. But fortunately, most of the guests were heading in the same direction. I was heading there myself. And how many different doors there were around. And behind each one, it seemed to me, some secret was hidden. I tried to look into one, and found the musicians rehearsing. The conductor turned to me with displeasure, and his face was pale, as if starched, and his eyes, on the contrary, were black. The gaze was pressing. The musicians also turned their heads towards me at once, although they continued to play. An unpleasantly oppressive impression was created, and I quickly turned away. But then the path began to approach closer to the center, closer to the most desired place, the main hall of the opera. Here I had to push even more, and stand in a small queue to enter. During which I began to look at how small candle spirits were crawling out of the candlesticks of the candelabra. They probably lived inside, having a magically expanded room space in each candle. Each spirit was like an inverted drop of water, or a balloon. Tiny clawed paws, no legs, a body pointed at the bottom. A comical toothy mouth and nose, as if drawn by a child, and large eyes burning with flame. The spirits of the candelabra spoke in thin squeaky voices, and they were scarlet, orange, yellow, in general, all the colors of the rainbow. But mainly the lower part of the spectrum. And now, finally, the crowd reached its goal. And before us opened the heavy golden gates, covered with complex artistic engraving. The ornament depicted blooming gardens and fairy tale creatures dancing in them. The doors opened unbearably slowly, and behind them, before me, the great opera itself opened.